And I also want to make it clear that there have been several studies that talk about the fact that talking about suicide does not give somebody the idea. In fact, 5 studies have shown that it actually encourages people to reach out for help. So this is Charles. He was the funniest, most popular kid in school. This was a proud mama moment. And it was one of the few proud mama moments we were going to have. This is his sophomore year. So he was already starting to struggle, but I couldn't exactly put my finger on what it was that was the issue. And when he got on homecoming court, it was just so much fun. His older brother actually won that year. But it wasn't long after that picture was taken that Charles's drug use started to escalate to some pretty scary levels. So, it started off with some alcohol and marijuana. But we weren't able to really stop him from doing it. And you think, well, I'll just take away the car keys, or I'll, all these punitive measures, but that doesn't work. Not when you have a child that's using alcohol and drugs to self-medicate, which is basically what he was doing. And we got word from his counselor that Charles was using this substance and some other really dangerous party drugs. So we had to make the decision to have our son kidnapped out of his bed. And I remember the night before when he came in, and we knew, my husband and I knew, that we were going to have him kidnapped the next day. We had to plan this kidnapping. And the thing is, your child doesn't know, but you know, and you just feel real deceitful. And he comes in our room and he starts talking about the prom. I'm going to wear tails and a top hat, and I'm going to have a cane, and it's going to be so cool, and I'm going to go with so-and-so. And we know this is not going to happen. But we've got smiles pasted on our faces. And we're, oh, that'd be so nice. And when he left the room, we broke down in tears. Because we were grieving the loss of normal. Because we knew once he was shipped off to Wilderness, they typically recommend therapeutic boarding school following Wilderness. So he was unlikely to come home for maybe 18 months to 2 years. So he goes to therapeutic boarding school after Wilderness, and he finally comes home in 2014, having graduated from high school. It was not pretty. It didn't happen easily because he hated Wilderness, he hated therapeutic boarding school, and he never made it easy for us. The beautiful thing about Wilderness, though, was that we finally got something called a psychological evaluation. Basically, went through all the local resources, and we just run out of them. And we sent him away because I wanted to save his life. I felt like he was motoring towards the side of a mountain at full throttle, and we couldn't stop it. And he ends up getting addicted to heroin. We don't know it at first. He was addicted for months before I knew that he was actually addicted to heroin. My husband gets a call on the phone, and it's the police. And at first I'm like, oh, Charles has been arrested. That is awesome. That means he's safe. And then I think, why would the city police go to my home in Chesterfield County to tell me that my 20-year-old child has been arrested? And then it hit me. So we're in the back of a police car. I'm in the back, my husband's in the front. And as soon as I get in the car, he says, I have some sad news to share. Your son Charles has been found dead this morning. And of course, the bottom drops out of my world. And somehow my husband recovered enough to be able to stop and ask the question, well, how did he die? And for whatever reason, I think, what a crazy question. He was doing heroin. How do you think he died? And the policeman says he killed himself. And the method left no question. I had thought previously I'd gotten the worst news of my life. When I heard that, I couldn't even let the word into my head. I didn't understand. And I'm watching my husband in the front seat having his emotional explosion. I can't even breathe. I can't even figure it out. And the first thing I think of is, he loved us. How could he do that to us? How could he leave us? And then I thought, how is it that I am such a crummy mother that my child would choose to leave me and kill himself? What I didn't realize, and what I didn't know at the time, is that it wasn't about me. He didn't kill himself because of us. He killed himself because he was suffering unbelievable emotional pain. I call suicidal thinking a brain attack. In Charles's case, he was also going through withdrawal. And previously, when he had gone through withdrawal, he had been suicidal. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until after he died, and I read his music lyrics, which clearly indicated he had been suicidal and had suicidal thoughts since middle school. And the last thing you want to say is, you have so much to live for. The first thing you need to do is connect with the pain. Tell me more. So how do you go from cute, bubbly, fun, engaging, to addicted to heroin, depressed, and died by suicide? So we're going to talk about what people say when they want to end their lives, and then I'm going to show you Charles's last tweets. They talk about ending their lives. Now, Charles used to talk a lot about death. He would talk about all the people that died young, like Michael Jackson, and he'd say things to me like, you know, I'm probably never going to have children, Mom. You know, I might die young. To which I didn't really know exactly what to say. And I wish I had known what to say, but I didn't. They'll say things like, I'm a burden to others. No one would miss me if I wasn't here. They'll be glad I'm gone because I'm such a burden now. And they'll also make reference to looking in the mirror and not liking what they see stare back at them. And typically, children who have suicidal ideation suffer from a mental illness, whether it's anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder. So I'm going to show you Charles's last tweets that he posted online, and I didn't see all of these. And he posted some of them on Facebook, but I had been blocked from Facebook, so I didn't see them. If I died, no one would notice for 30 days. If you want to see who really cares about you, see who's still there when you have nothing. Death sounds nice. If I were to just have Googled one of these phrases, it would have been one of the bullet points under what do they say when they're thinking of suicide. But I was not in that state of mind. He wasn't in the house at that time, and emotionally, I just wasn't processing things the right way. Here's the phrase, are you thinking of suicide? So when I had seen somebody post something on Facebook like, you guys have been great, I'm like, that sounds more like a goodbye letter to me, but everybody else has interpreted it a different way. Oh, thank you, I love you too. And I'm like, no, I'll PM them. are you thinking of suicide? And sometimes I get, no, but thank you for asking. But about 50% of the time I get, yes, I am. What do you think I should do next? People who are thinking of suicide actually do want to tell. My son wanted to tell me. And that's very difficult for me to live with. This is what we expect depression to look like. But this is what it often looks like. Funniest, most popular kid in school. Wore the mask of a clown. You could not tell that Charles was depressed. Only one person ever told me that they thought Charles suffered from depression, and that was the theater teacher in the very first picture. That was Miss Fretwell. She told me that she thought he suffered from depression. The only one in Virginia before he was shipped off to Wilderness that ever said the word depression to me. And at first I'm like, how is that possible? But in Wilderness he was diagnosed with depression and cannabis dependence and anxiety, and I believe that was it, and ADHD combined type, which we already knew about. The bottom line is I want you to trust your gut. So if your child is starting to withdraw from activities that they've previously enjoyed before, that's a sign. So it's been an intense presentation. We're going to take a real short little mindful break here. I applied for some speaking engagements on a site, and I got this email the other day, and I thought it was funny. Hi, Ann. I don't think we need a speaker on mental health and suicide at our wine tasting and steak dinner fundraiser. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to email back and go, you know what? I think it might go with omelet and bacon and coffee. What do you think? What's a good time to talk about suicide? 2 o'clock, on vacation, when you're running? You tell me. The truth is, nobody thinks it's ever a good time to talk about suicide. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about culture awareness. What is different between our culture growing up and the one our kids grew up in, or growing up in now, is that drugs are normalized. It is typical on a college campus when somebody wants to stay up all night to go pick up a couple of Adderall to stay up all night. That's a highly dangerous drug when it's not prescribed to the person. Highly addictive, and it creates suicidal thinking in a lot of children. I remember a story that somebody told me after Charles died. And a young lady contacted me and she said that I went to Cosby High School with your son and I suffer from depression. And one day I could hardly get myself out of bed. And I finally pried myself out of bed. I paced on a mask of a clown, and I'm standing in the hallway with my friends, and I'm struggling. But my friends don't really notice. And they're laughing and talking, and I look up, and there's Charles staring straight at me. Now, she said, everybody knew Charles, so I knew him, but she said, I didn't think he knew me. And then all of a sudden, he makes a beeline towards her, stops a foot in front of her, and breaks out in a freestyle rap song. And that is rap that you make up on the spot, just for her. Her friends are stunned. She's stunned. And then they start dying laughing. He bends down. He hugs her. He says, pretty girls shouldn't look so sad. And then he makes his way down the hall. And she said, of all the things that anybody's ever done for me, that's the nicest. And I'll never forget it. And when I have my low points, I remember that about him. You know, as funny and as smart and as talented as Charles was, that was his greatest gift, letting other people know that they matter. And that's something we can all do starting today. It's easy. So if you think and you feel something's not right, I think that person might be struggling, our instinct in the past maybe has been kind of to turn away and hope it goes away. But sometimes that comes true and not quite the way you expect. So stop, take the time to connect with somebody.